So it says it's going live. Scott, says it's live right now. Are you seeing us on there?
I need to toggle over. Hang on one second. Yes, sir. I see everything.
Excellent. Excellent. It says it's going live. Scott, says it's live right now. Are you seeing us on there?
I need to toggle over. Hang on one second.
So Scott, you'll want to turn that sound off on the YouTube.
Yes, sir. I see everything.
Excellent. Excellent. It says it's going live. Scott, says it's live right now. Are you seeing us on there?
I need to toggle over. Hang on one second.
So Scott, you'll want to turn that sound off on the YouTube.
Yes, sir. I see everything.
Excellent. Excellent. It says it's going live. Scott, says it's live right now. Are you seeing us on there?
I need to toggle over. Hang on one second.
So Scott, you'll want to turn that sound off on the YouTube.
Yes, sir. I see everything.
Excellent. Excellent. It says it's going live. Scott, says it's live right now. Are you seeing us on there?
I need to toggle over. Hang on one second.
So Scott, you'll want to turn that sound off on the YouTube.
Yes, sir. I see everything.
Excellent. Excellent. It says it's going live. Scott, says it's live right now. Are you seeing us on there?
I need to toggle over. Hang on one second.
So Scott, you'll want to turn that sound off on the YouTube. I think that was me because I had my sound going at the same time in this live stream video. Apologize to everybody out there. Let me go ahead and reshare my screen with the presentation and we will get rolling. All right. How's that looking there? Scott, can you tell on your end? Looking good? Okay. And then Scott, can you tell if you can hear me through the YouTube live stream, or if maybe somebody in the YouTube live stream can put in the chat that yes, they can hear us okay?
So mine is muted. So I don't know if mine is working or not. I had it muted because I had the same feedback loop.
So maybe if somebody who's out there and watching the YouTube live stream can affirm we're good, they're hearing us. Okay. Thanks, Scott. Appreciate it. Okay. All right, everybody, welcome to our presentation here tonight for coming to you on a YouTube live stream from the International School of Beaverton. Apologize for some of the technical difficulties. What we are trying to do is run a Zoom meeting that is being live streamed. We weren't sure how many people would be here tonight, and so we wanted to make sure we were on a platform that as many people as possible could see. With the Zoom platform, it's limited in terms of the numbers that can actually get on there. So that's why we're doing it this way. I'm Andrew Guilford. I'm the principal here at the International School of Beaverton. And we've got a presentation that will last probably around 45 minutes, sharing with you a number of things about the middle years program or the middle school here at ISB. We're not really going to go into a whole lot about the high school. We have an upcoming presentation next week on November 9th, if you're interested in that one. And then we'll be repeating the same presentation on November 16th. So the one that's on the 16th is no different than this one, same presentation, but we just wanted to make two different dates available to families who might not be able to make one or the other one of those. In a moment here, we'll do some introductions and you'll get a sense of who the various ISB staff are that are in the room. And then I'll kind of frame the overall presentation for you, tell you what some of the things are that you'll be hearing about, and then we'll go through our presentation. At the end of it, like I said, we'll take questions. And the way that we'll take questions is by having you type those questions into the chat that's on the YouTube live stream. Mr. Gladney here, he'll monitor that chat. And as those questions come up at the end, he'll go through the ones that seem to be most relevant to everybody in the room. And then we'll go ahead and address those questions is what we'll do at that time. And we'll be closing promptly at 7:30. So we have until 7:30 to do the presentation and then answer any questions you might have. So first of all, like I said, I'm Andrew Guilford. I'm the principal here at ISB. And I asked each staff member to share their name, their role, how long they've been at ISB. And then knowing that school looked really different last year, and we all missed a number of things about being here live and in person, I asked staff members to share also something that they were very excited to get back to, something they realized that they missed a lot. And once they got back in school this year, we're grateful to have. So I'm Andrew Guilford. I'm the principal. I've been here, I think about 4 months now. I started in early July. I'm just really excited to be able to be part of the ISB community at this point. And, because of COVID conditions, our band and our choir have been practicing quite a bit out in the hallways and even outside the building. And so last year during the pandemic, where I didn't really get to see any of the student learning or the student growth made visible, it's been such a delight just to walk through the school and hear those strains of music coming from the choir, coming from the band, and actually seeing exhibits during art for art class, seeing students practicing presentations in the hallways. Being back in person has made learning visible again. And that has just been wonderful, wonderful to see. And so we'll go right down the list here. Scott, you're next.
Hi, everyone. My name is Scott Gladney. I'm the assistant principal at ISB, and I'm going on my 10th year here at ISB. One of the things that I absolutely missed, and I didn't realize I missed it until it was gone, was the human connection. There's an intangible, just amazing feeling about ISB, the community, the students, the staff members. And when that was taken away, that was tough. But coming back into the building and seeing the kids, interacting with them on a daily basis, and working with such a great staff has just been a blessing. And so that is something I will not take for granted again. And it's good to be back. I'll kick it to Jack.
Hi, my name is Jack Rossing. I'm a middle school counselor at ISB this year. This is my first year at ISB. So I'm new also. And yeah, I'm doing the 6th and 7th graders. But what I missed the most was probably watching students play, just being out on the field, running around, having fun with each other. I coach in my free time, and I love seeing kids play with each other. And yeah, I enjoy that a lot.
And I'm Shafin Thomas, and I am one of the 6th grade math teachers at ISB, and I've been teaching math for 10 of the last 13 years, and I've been at ISB for the last 5 years. And I think being a 6th grade teacher, one of the things that I've missed the most is being asked about 18 times a day to borrow my locker key because 6th graders can't open their lockers. So it's great to be back in the building.
I'm David Moss. I teach social studies at the middle school and high school levels at ISB. And this is my 3rd year at ISB. And what I missed most was just the students' energy. It's just, at the beginning of every class right now, it's just nice to just kind of watch them come in and feel their, just how excited they are to be back in person and socializing with each other and checking in on each other, and just feels like the community's back. So that was definitely something I missed. Thank you.
Buenas tardes. My name is Jill Murphy. I am a Spanish teacher here at ISB, and I've been at ISB since 2012. And the thing I missed most when we had the students on Zoom and most of them had their cameras off was being able to see their reactions and see on their face if they were understanding or if they thought that my dumb jokes were funny or not. And I never got that feedback. And now I just am so grateful to have faces in front of me this year. That's what I missed.
Thank you all. So I'd like to start by just sharing our ISB school mission with you all. And many schools have missions, and I've been at many schools, but I truly feel that ISB embodies this mission and uses this mission both as something to aspire to, but also as guidelines as we're making decisions, as we're deciding what to emphasize, as we're looking at curriculum. Truly our mission is, like I said, both a guide for us, but also something we aspire to be able to give students the best experience possible. So our goal at ISB is to encourage students to learn through an international lens as thoughtful, compassionate world citizens. We actively embrace intellectual rigor, intercultural respect, service to our local and world communities, and the promise of a peaceful world. So I've highlighted certain elements of that in light red, and those elements that I highlighted are going to sort of serve as the backbone of our presentation tonight. We're going to start off talking about sort of the international lens, that actually coupled with the intercultural respect, how we embody that here at ISB. We'll spend a good chunk of time on the intellectual rigor piece. And during that time, we'll be describing to you our academic program for middle school and the middle years program. And then also give some examples of how we provide service to our local and world communities and how that's embedded into and part of really our ISB life. So one of the elements that gives us or helps us provide students with an international lens is our curriculum. We are an IBO world school, which means that we have been authorized by the International Baccalaureate Organization to provide the IB Middle Years program and the IB Diploma program. You'll see we're kind of two schools in one, or maybe even you could argue four schools in one. So we are a middle school at ISB, which is grades 6, 7, and 8. We are also a high school, which is grades 9, 10, 11, and 12. So we're a 6 through 12 school. But our curricular program doesn't fall neatly across those lines. In IB, what we have, or the IBO world, we have what's called the middle years program. So our curricular program for middle schools is an articulated program that runs grade 6 through grade 10, at the end of which students who have been here earn the middle years program certificate. And then we have during grades 11th and 12, what we call the diploma program, which is sort of the culminating couple of years to an incredibly rigorous international education. So those of you that are here, I'm assuming most of you who are watching tonight are thinking about 6th grade or 7th grade or 8th grade. So your students will be participating in the middle years program. The middle years program, I know this is sort of a very busy screen here, but I want to talk about sort of the philosophy of the middle years program. You'll notice in this diagram, students are at the center of that. And if you can see in the writing there, it says the IB Learner Profile, which is a descriptor of characteristics of the students and what we are trying to achieve in bringing students to this program. And I'll talk more about the profile in just a second on the next slide. But really, we hold students at our center. And as we design our approaches to teaching and our approaches to learning, we do that through a global context. We do that through some universal concepts that exist across courses and within a discipline across the years. We incorporate action and activity and service into the work that we do, both in classes and outside of classes. The content that students are taking, and we'll go into some of the details of this content later on this presentation, you can see that's sort of in that middle ring: language and literature, individuals and societies, mathematics, et cetera, all the way around that ring. It's making that circle around the middle part, because we try to, as much as possible, and we're growing in this area, try to integrate that curriculum and integrate those courses so that students are able to see connections from course to course, be able to apply what they're learning in one course in another course, have skills and be taught skills that are transferable between courses. So that's kind of the big, broad picture that relates to the IB middle years program. It's age appropriate in the sense, like I said, it's integrated as much as we can. It's active and is project-based as much as we can. It recognizes that students in the middle years need to be focused on skills, need to be focused on tools that they can gain, that they can then leverage as they go on in their learning. At the heart of everything we do and incorporated into all of our classes, and actually it was all, even outside of classes in our advisory, our extracurricular activities, is the IB learner profile. ISB aims to develop internationally minded students or people, and those students are striving to embody those characteristics. We want them to be inquirers, want them to be knowledgeable, critical thinkers. Much of the IB curriculum at all levels focus tremendously on critical thinking, critical writing, critical reading, speaking skills. We want students to be caring as well. That's important to us, that the values they embody, the way they treat each other, the way they demonstrate that they are principled individuals, ends up helping us create a community where students feel empathy to each other, where students feel responsibility for each other, and students are willing to step up and honestly do the right thing. And so much of our conversation in class, much of our conversation during advisory time, and even in relationships to tasks, academic tasks they're doing in class, we connect those tasks to various aspects of the learner profile that you're seeing here.
How we incorporate international lens and intercultural respect. We do as much as we can, and I'm mostly speaking pre-pandemic. We have teachers from other countries come and visit us in our world languages. We have, we host Japanese teacher or Mandarin teachers, native speakers that come and stay with us, and then teach our kids. We also, as often as possible, will invite student groups from around the world that happen to be visiting the Northwest to give presentations, to share their talents, their skills, their experiences on what it's like to live around the world. One of our greatest, I think, assets is actually the students that we serve. Students on a daily basis learn from one another, and they feel comfortable sharing their life experiences, their cultures. In our homes, we have almost 50 languages spoken, 50 different languages spoken in our homes of our students. So that is one of our, truly one of our biggest gifts are the kids in the seats. And when you create the right atmosphere where it is, where you learn from one another and you look at that as an asset, truly kids learn best from each other. On top of that, we also have many of our teachers have taught or do teach internationally when they get an opportunity. Every year, we also have something called Culture Week and International Night. Culture Week is where we have we kind of put a pause on our regular day-to-day learning, and we have intercultural sessions where students will go. They'll sign up for things that interest them, and we have guest speakers, up to 40 different groups that they can choose from. Some age appropriate for middle school, some for high school, some that are either one. And kids just get an opportunity to learn about unique things about topics from around the world. One thing I need to say about our school, when we talk about rigor, we are a 612. It is impossible for us, because we're such a small school, it is impossible for us to run simultaneously a middle school schedule and a high school schedule. We do run a high school schedule. It's called a high school block schedule, which means that you have even days and odd days where you only see half of your classes on one day, then you'll see your other half on the next. and they're long periods, generally over 80 minutes. You can see by the A day, B day schedule that if you had, let's say, math period 1, you'd see it, let's say, on Monday, but then you wouldn't see that math teacher until again on Wednesday. And so it's an A day, B day, 1, 3, 5, 7, 2, 4, 6, 8. That can create a challenge for some of our younger students because, first of all, they're not typically used to that sustained, that long period of time, but then also being organized and going, okay, I just had a class on Monday, but I'm not going to see the teacher till Wednesday. So I know that I have homework on Tuesday, so I need to figure that out. The beautiful thing is, though, that our teachers, and they might speak of this, our teachers are really good, especially the ones at the younger ages, of keeping things moving. So it's not just a sit and get for 87 minutes, but it's constantly changing and interacting with the students, and the students interacting with their text or with their curriculum, and mixing it up quite frequently, so they can kind of stay engaged. On top of that, they do an amazing job of also keeping students organized. The courses that you see, these are all the classes that the students will be taking. At the 6th grade level, students, I'll let Ms. Murphy get to that when we get specifically to each of the courses. But the MYP values all of these equally, and so there aren't going to be short classes and long classes. If you're in a world language class, it's just as long as your math class, and you see it just as frequently as your PE or as your social studies. And we'll also get into that a little bit as well. But all of these are valued with equal parts.
I am going to talk about our world language department at ISB. At ISB, we offer language acquisition in 3 languages. So we offer Spanish, Japanese, and Mandarin Chinese. If your student is an English language learner and they have an ESL class, that would be in place of their world language class. But for everyone else, world language classes are available, and our 6th graders get to choose 2 of the languages that they want to learn. Now, our department is designed to be language acquisition. So our students are learning a new language. This is not an immersion program or a post-immersion program or a native language literacy program. We're asking students to choose a new language that they're going to be learning at ISB. For example, in 6th grade, if you already speak Spanish at home, you will get to learn Mandarin and Japanese. Or if you were at an immersion program, like you went to Hope Chinese Immersion, in 6th grade, you'll get to learn Japanese and Spanish for your new languages. And then in the spring, they'll choose a language that they want to take for the rest of their career at ISB. So in 6th grade, those courses are just 1 quarter long. They get language for 9 weeks. It's just a basic intro, like a taste, if you will, of the language so that they can choose later on. And then when they're in 7th grade, they'll take a full year of level 1 of their language that they chose. And in 8th grade, they'll be in level 2, and so on and so forth until they get to the DP program. If a student comes in at 8th grade level and they've never taken a language before, they can go ahead and take level 1 in 8th grade. They're always able to start in a lower level, just not a higher level. So that way, no matter when they come in, there is always a language course available for them to learn something new in a new language. And I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Thomas, who's going to talk about math.
So this right here is a little bit of an illustration of what the math program looks like for the middle years program. And you can kind of see the pathways that students have the opportunity to walk into. All 6th grade students at ISB will participate in a level of an accelerated math course. So what's on the left there is what's called Math 6-7. And that course includes all of the 6th grade content standards for math, and it will include about half of the content standards for 7th grade. And if a student was on that pathway, they would continue with the remainder of those 7th grade standards and then 8th grade standards in their 7th grade year. and that sets them up to be in the AGS series starting in 8th grade. And then the diagram there at the right gives some information about a slightly different pathway. Again, also an accelerated pathway. And that pathway would include 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade content standards in that 6th grade year. And then those students who successfully complete that course would be able to start the algebra, statistics, geometry, or AGS series starting in 7th grade. And then for students that finish in either of those pathways, they have the opportunity to kind of make some directional choices in the diploma program itself there in terms of what they are probably most interested in, what feels like the best fit for them based on their experiences in that middle years program that's there.
All right, I'm going to talk about the academic supports. So at ISB, we aim to create an environment where we can get any student through the diploma program. AVID's a big part of this. So AVID there's a class for AVID, and we also incorporate it into our curriculum to help students with organization, and stands for advancement via individual determination. Help students move on to their post-secondary careers. And yeah, we incorporate into a lot of our curriculum. Canvas is the site we use to organize homework, contact teachers, for students to keep up to date with their classes. Counselors, that's me. We're excited to have a full-time social worker this year. And then we have a ESL program and Fed department, create things like IEPs, individual education plans to help students along. And yeah, homework. There's a summer reading assignment nightly. You can expect about an hour for 6th graders, usually a little bit more. And then a little bit more homework as they progress through the middle school. Really varies based on the kid though. Some students move a little slower through their homework, and we'll support them through that. Some students can get through it pretty quickly, but yeah, a little over an hour a night is what we shoot for 6th grade. Assignments can vary a lot, and yeah.
Sorry, didn't mean to cut you off there.
Yeah, it just depends. We do a lot of like projects, a lot of reading, summarizing notes, a lot of what you find at most schools.
All right, I'm going to talk to you about service to our local and global communities. So as Mr. Guilford pointed out at the start of this presentation, it's very central to our mission as world citizens to give back to our local communities. And the middle years program expects as 6th graders that students will be fulfilling service learning hours. As 7th graders, a bulk of the hours are completed through class service learning opportunities. And with this, we connect students to local places such as the THPRD, food banks, and other organizations that serve those with varied needs. And it's also part of our expectations we have for all of our students at each of the grade levels. The 8th grade, let's see, 8th grade community project. This is a collaborative activity where students identify a need in the community, and then they execute their plan of action through their advisory. And this takes place during the final quarter of 8th grade. This is a summative service learning project, and it loosely connects to a design cycle, which is also part of the MYP design curriculum. It's typically something that students do really well with because they're able to have a lot of autonomy and control and partnership with each other with.
So all of our 6th graders do outdoor school, and this is also pre-pandemic. Last year we did an outdoor school that was virtual. And actually this upcoming year, we just got news that we're going to be doing a slightly modified outdoor school again. This time, keeping it local, not having overnights, but doing like day trips to environmental sites that are very local to us, and still getting that hands-on environmental science experience, but then also keeping everyone safe by not having them in cabins overnights and that whole bit. But by far, one of the greatest experiences I think that all of our sixth graders get to be a part of is the outdoor school, the science outdoor school, and it's typically in most years 4 days, 3 nights. They usually go somewhere out in the woods. They're in cabins, and they just learn about everything environmental science, and it is something that really connects all the students to each other. It's a good way that many of our middle school teachers join them, and it's a good way for them to make connections as well. It is free to all students and highly, highly encouraged for all of our students to have an experience. On a personal side note, I grew up in Oregon. One of probably my top 3 experiences, K-12, I would honestly have to say outdoor school was number 1. It was an incredible experience. And hopefully some of you out there that are watching this also have fond memories of your outdoor school experiences as well. So our middle schoolers, we do have co-curricular activities. We have things to keep it fun and interesting. And we have a very few clubs offered to our middle school students. One of them is student leadership, giving them opportunities to create fun environments for their peers, whether it's spirit days, whether it's socials. Just this last Friday, we had what we call the Harvest Social, and it was put on by our middle school student council. Of our 480 students, we had 360 of them attend. It was insane. It was a lot of fun, and kids just got to be kids after school for about an hour and a half to 2 hours. Just a way for them to really connect as a community. Other co-curricular activities you had already kind of mentioned, service as action, the opportunities for kids to give back to their local communities. Some of our co-curricular activities also involve community partners. One of our biggest community partners is THPRD, Tualatin Hills Park and Recreation District. We have the picture you're looking at is one of our I believe that's our track team. We have both a track team in the spring, and we also have a cross country team in the fall. And it's only open to ISB middle school kids, and they practice right after school, right on site, and we have a good showing. We have sometimes upwards of 50 middle school students that participate in both of those programs. In years past, we've also partnered with Northwest Children's Theater, and that has been a success in some years, but it all depends on the class of kids and what their interests are. I need to say that both of those activities do cost an extra fee to participate, whether it's THPRD or the Children's Theater, but they're opportunities for kids nonetheless. Some of the clubs that we also have during the school day or just after school, trivia club, Battle of the Books at the middle school level is huge. Many students have experienced it at the elementary level, and they are just as competitive, if not more. They get more fierce in the middle school as they battle it out, and they kind of nerd out. It's a cool thing for them to do. Another funny side story: one year we threw together a staff group and tried to battle with some of our kids, and we absolutely got destroyed. Our knowledge was nowhere near the depth that the kids did, and it was a very humbling and very awesome experience. I want to talk a little bit about our transportation. Because we serve the entire district, transportation is difficult. And we have two very distinct modes of getting kids to and from school, and they both serve a very different purpose. In the mornings, a bus will stop by your neighborhood and pick your student up. Sometimes super early, before even the early bird is up. There are kids standing on corners, 6:15 in the morning, catching a bus, and they will hop on that bus to one of three hubs. The hubs are all option schools, ISB being one of them. Then BASE is another one, and then ACMA is a third. And it all depends on where you live geographically in the district as to which hub you'll be delivered to. If your hub is not ISB, you'll hop off that bus and get on another bus with just other ISB kids. The first neighborhood bus that picks everybody up are just all the option kids. So it could be kids from ISB coupled with kids from Rachel Carson, coupled from kids from other options around the district. But then they get on a bus that goes directly to ISB with just ISB kids. Our day starts early. Our day starts at 7:30. Our buses arrive on our campus somewhere just before 7, anywhere between 7 o'clock and 7:10. And so it's an early day. In the afternoons, it's slightly different. Our school day, by design, we get out prior to the comprehensive high schools, and all of our ISB students get out at 2:05. Comprehensives get out at 2:30. We get on buses, and all of our schools go directly. All of our buses go directly from ISB to your home high school, whatever the high school is that you live closest to, that you're in that district. So it could be to the Sunset area. It could be to the Beaverton area or Aloha High School, all these different places. And our kids get off those buses before that school lets out, and then they hop onto a different bus. And then when the school dismisses, other kids get on those buses, and then they go back to your neighborhood. If you live close enough to your home high school, which I think is within a mile and change from there, then your student would then just walk directly home from the high school. The reason it gets out beforehand is because we have some of our high school students that participate in their home high school activities, whether it be their athletics or some of their programs that they have after school. They're eligible for those as well. Because we get to school so early, many of our students take advantage of breakfast. They will get there just about 7 o'clock. School doesn't start till 7:30, so cafeteria is open. They can get some good grub.
So I think there's some questions you have to ask yourself as a family if you're making the choice to go ahead and put ISB down on the lottery to come here. And these questions kind of fall into two categories. There's this set of questions here, which what I would sort of call the philosophical questions that are hard to say no to. Of course, you want your kids to make real world connections with their learning. Of course, you want them to grow up with sort of critical thinking skills and be able to read complex texts and analyze those texts. We want all of our children to go ahead and be able to contribute to creating a peaceful world through the service that they do. These are the kinds of kids we want who want to do these things. And ISB also, I think, gives rise to students who would answer yes to these categories and grow in these ways. These are hard things to say no to, like I said. I think philosophically, we often are a match for most kids. But there's also the practical side, which I think in some ways, especially for sixth graders coming in, may be more important questions to address. That first question there, do you want to have continuity in learning? Here's what I mean by that. We have spent considerable time here at ISB articulating the curriculum 6 through 12. So sixth graders are part of a program that in our heads, we have the goal of the IB diploma in mind 7 years after they start. And the skills and the knowledge builds on each other from year to year to year. Many students only come for the middle school years and leave and choose to attend home high schools, which is their have the option to do that. However, our program isn't designed for that. Our program is designed first as a middle years program, 6 through 10, which then prepares students for those final 2 years at the diploma program. So while we follow state standards in the same ways that all of the schools do, know that in the shift from ISB back to a home high school, there might be some hiccups, there might be some bumps because it might not be perfectly aligned. So we're designing our program to be aligned internally 6 through 12. The other thing to recognize is that because this is an option school, your children might be coming here with almost all new people. I don't know, we have usually a few kids from every elementary school in the district, but for many students, they're finding themselves all of a sudden at 6th grade, not knowing a lot of students that are around them, having already gone through a K through 5 school, maybe knowing a lot of kids. They're now in a situation where there's a lot of strangers here. Jumping out of that last bullet point on there, we are a very small school. So over time, with only 100 and, usually about 160 students at the 6th grade level, and the 7th and 8th as well, your incoming students would probably get to know almost everybody at their grade level. Now, a small school does not mean also small class sizes, just to be clear on that. Our typical 6th grade core content classes are going to be really similar to other middle schools across the district, somewhere probably between 30 and 35 students, sometimes larger than that at the middle school level. So it's not so much a small class size, but we are a small school. Students will become known very quickly and get to know each other very quickly. Some students love that because they feel like they're part of a small community. Some students who prefer to remain anonymous don't necessarily like that kind of closeness that happens here at ISB. Scott shared with you a little bit about the commute. If your student is going to be taking the bus, that's potentially a lot of time on a bus and something to be thinking about getting up that early in the morning, something to be thinking about as a student to be able to change buses midway through their commute, be riding a high school bus home potentially from their own neighborhood high school, something for parents to take into consideration. Not so much at the 6th grade level, but as they move into the 7th grade level and 8th grade level, many of our classes become mixed grade levels. So even though many classes are not, there will be some classes where they'll have students that are older than them in with. Certainly in the hallways, in the cafeteria, there will be students at all grade levels that they will be coming into contact with and getting to know. And our high school students are amazing. Our 11th and 12th grade students model the values and the behavior we want all our students to have. But that being said, for a 6th grader coming in, they might find that intimidating to be kind of mixing in the hallways, mixing in the cafeteria, and at times in classes with older students. As also we talked about earlier, because we are on a high school schedule, 90 minutes or 87 minutes is a long class period. And while our teachers do an amazing job keeping it active and breaking that up into smaller chunks, the reality is every other day for 87 minutes of a class can feel like a lot sometimes. And so I think thinking about your own kid and whether that's a chunk of learning that will work for them is something for you to be taking into consideration as you're making decisions as to whether or not you would want to jump into the lottery for ISB. So with that, let me talk a little about next steps. We will have about 150 seats we will fill through the lottery in 6th grade. I don't know how many people actually apply for the lottery, but that's the number of seats we'll offer. And then we reserve about 10 seats for second consideration. So those are students who didn't get in through the lottery. And at this point, those 10 seats are reserved for sibling preference. We give sibling preference for 2 main reasons. Building community here at ISB is incredibly important to us. We're a close community, and having families come through here over those 7 years, whether that's just a single sibling or families of 3 or sometimes 4 or more, is part of, I think, what makes ISB really special and keeps us close to each other. And we want to be able to preserve that. And I also know that for many families, dividing up the schools that their kids have to go to and trying to manage multiple kids, multiple students in multiple different schools is a real challenge. And we don't want to present that challenge to families. We believe keeping families together in the same school is healthy for them and healthy for the kids. So we have a large number for the lottery for sixth grade, some seats that we reserve for the sibling preference second consideration. Seventh and eighth grade, obviously it's considerably less seats in the lottery because most of our sixth graders stay. And we keep a few seats there also for second consideration. What also tends to happen, if we are not, after the lottery and after second consideration, are not fully enrolled at 160 students per grade level for 6, 7, and 8, or if students decide late spring, early summer, they want to leave and go to a different school, we then go back to the lottery and that gets run again for additional students. So with each additional seat that opens up, we run the lottery or run the list of who's on the waiting list. By chance, if your name comes up, our registrar reaches out to you and sees if you're still interested in coming here to ISB. So that's the process that works by. Obviously, on the Beaverton School District website is where you'll find the application for all the option schools. That needs to be filled out and submitted by 4 p.m. on December 10th. It can be either filled out online and submitted digitally. If you want to print a paper version, you can do that. But that needs to be into the district office by 4 p.m. on the 10th, not into here at ISB, but into the district office if you're going to do the paper version of it. The lottery then actually happens on Wednesday, December 15th. We don't run that lottery. That's run by the district office. And then notifications will be emailed out to families on Thursday, December 16th, informing you whether or not your child was admitted by the lottery. If you do get in, you actually have until February 2nd to accept that offer. In past years, we have been able to offer shadow days where students who are trying to decide once the lottery has occurred, if they do in fact want to come to ISB, are able to come. We don't know yet if we'll be able to offer that this year because of COVID. Right now with distancing, we are maxed out in terms of having kids in our school, and to have 150 kids over a few days, additional kids come in and sit in sixth grade classes is not going to work for us unless the metrics change considerably between now and February. So at this point, we're not planning on shadow days, but we have some days that we've reserved on our calendar just in case those COVID metrics change and we're actually able to increase the number of students we have in the building. But obviously, if you do get accepted in the lottery and you're still trying to decide, we're open to whatever questions you might have and to having you reach out to us, and we'll try and answer those the best that we can. I think I just talked that all through. So as spaces become available, we go ahead and go back to that original application pool, reach out to families in additional rounds to see if that they are still interested. So what I want to do, I want to actually close here with just a short video. If you've been taking a look at our website, you may have seen this already, which really shows, I think, the spirit of who we are at ISB and the ethos of what we are trying to provide to our students and have our students embody. This is a short video that was made earlier this year, mid-September, in celebration of the International Day of Peace, in which our student body formed a giant peace sign out on our field behind our campus. So I'll go ahead and play that. And then at the end of that, we'll have time for any questions. And so like we said earlier, if there are questions that you have, feel free to go ahead and put those into the chat of the YouTube live stream, and then we'll go ahead and address those.
Are you guys ready for peace? Yes!
I am Andrew Guilford. I am the principal at the International School of Beaverton, part of the Beaverton School District. So we are taking our entire student body and we are going out onto our field, and we're going to be making a gigantic peace sign out there.
I actively embrace the promise of a peaceful world by picking up after our community and caring for others and helping them in need.
I actively embrace the promise of a peaceful world by challenging outdated definitions of peace and by committing to accept diverse cultural expressions.
So today we are celebrating the International Day of Peace, and that connects a lot to our mission here at the International School of Beaverton. We try to create compassionate world citizens.
I actively embrace a peaceful world by advocating for what I believe in and standing up for myself and others.
I actively embrace the promise of a peaceful world by treating everyone how I want to be treated, no matter their race, color, or religion.
It is rare that we're actually able to bring our whole school together. We have students from 48 different language groups. We have students of multiple ethnicities, multiple religions, multiple races, and being able to connect those students to each other and have those students sit down in class together and laugh and play and learn is the first steps in actually creating that peaceful world. So at this time, we'll open ourselves up to any questions you might have. Scott, I know you're looking in the chat. If you see some ones, and feel free to either answer yourself or to call on anybody in this group to address those questions.
Okay, thank you. Looking at it, we have a couple of questions early on, and what percentage of students stay for all 5 years of the middle years program? And then after that, what percentage of grade students continue on to the diploma program? I think I'll go ahead and field both of those. The first one, it's interesting. I don't have the data to just say this percentage of students. What I can say, generally, when families make the commitment to come in middle school, it's more so the parents making that decision. When they stay for high school, that's generally the students that are making that decision. We have two major, I guess, exit points that people generally tend to say, see you later. And one of those is 8th grade to 9th grade, because for a large variety of reasons, sometimes they just want the big high school experience. Sometimes they want a more diverse and rich elective program than what we offer, or something different. Those that stay, though, when they stay, they generally, the second place that they generally exit would be the 10th grade. And here's the interesting thing about kids that leave us in 10th grade. We have a large group of students that, if they choose to leave us in 10th grade, they'll go to early college. And it's because I think, honestly, we've done a really good job of preparing them for whatever their next step might be. This year's senior class, of our 96 kids, 12 of them decided to choose to go to early college instead of staying with us. And they're quite successful. So I hope that answered your question. I didn't give you any raw data as to what percentage, but I hope that was what you were looking for. We have another question that's asking, how, SUMA being compared to ISB, and I see someone in the chat is a parent here, and thank you for the plug. I love what you said about our curriculum and ISB itself. That's honestly what I would say as well. Students become incredible critical thinkers, and they become amazing writers. One of the things that the IB really values is being able to critically think, and then also communicate via writing. A lot of their IB tests, when they sit at the end of the year, at the end of their 12th grade year, for their IB exams, they will be writing essays. They'll be writing and explaining a lot of things in very detail about the knowledge that they know on whatever given subject they might be studying, including math. Other questions? We already answered the question. Hopefully, I didn't see when this came in. The sibling preference, that was explained. If you have further questions, feel free to call us at some point, and we will further explain that for you. One of them also is sports clubs, and do we have a playground? Here's kind of the funny thing. We have recess at ISB, And we have 3 lunches, and we have everything from wall ball to foursquare to basketball to football to soccer. And all of our kids play. I'm not just talking all of our middle school kids. All of our kids play. It is not uncommon to see a pickup game of basketball or a game of football or foursquare or wall ball, even from our upper grade levels, our 11th and 12th graders. I don't think you can go to any other campus in our district and see that. It's okay to be a kid at ISB. We embrace that, and it's a part of who we are. And I kind of love it, actually. Sports clubs, I will just also put a plug that we have student athletes. We have student athletes at the high school level, but they don't compete for ISB. They compete for their home high school. So it's oftentimes you will see kids sitting together at lunch, and they're eating lunch together. And later on that night on the soccer pitch, they're battling it out against each other. Just a couple last week, I went to a senior night match between Sunset and between Southridge and Aloha, and I saw a total of 7 ISB kids from both teams, and it was incredible. I was incredibly proud of all of them. Other questions that we might have. I'm now going to turn it over to some other folks here. There is a question, Shafin, maybe you can start answering this one, and I can kick it up. I can add anything into it as well. How does a child get put into one of the 2 math pathways? And do other classes have multiple pathways as well? So I'll let you answer the math pathways, and then I'll jump in if you'd like some extra support with that.
So that's definitely a common question. And, we try to use a variety of data points when we're making placement decisions for our incoming 6th graders. And some of those data points are going to be previous standardized tests. Some of those data points might be tag identification in mathematics, as well as information from elementary schools that are coming in. Obviously, in the last year and a half, that's been a little bit upended, but we're still using those data points to help us make those decisions. But it's also, we really feel it's really important to make sure that students are placed in the correct pathway where they're going to be both challenged, but challenged appropriately. And so at the beginning of the year, we also do, it's not a placement test, but we do kind of a benchmark assessment at the beginning of the year for all of our incoming 6th grade students. And that gives me, as the 6th grade teacher, some additional data points that I can look at in real time, not just from the past or from an elementary school, but that I can see what students are doing in that moment. And every year since I've been here, there have been a few points of shift for some of those students, just to make sure that they are in those appropriate pathways that we have. So, we take that seriously. We really want to make sure that we get students placed in the right pathway, and in those places where we may miss that on the incoming piece, we really try to catch that within those first couple of weeks of school and make sure that we can make that shift and communicate with families about that as we're going.
And let me throw in a little bit about the math pathways as well. Regardless of which of those 2 pathways students would start out at, they still would end up in one of those IB math classes at the junior and senior year if they were to stay that whole time. And all of those math classes at the junior and senior year, the IB ones, are equivalent to college level mathematics. And so obviously some are further along in college level mathematics than others. But in terms of preparation for what would come next and after ISB, we have no concern at all around students and where they're at in math at that point. And neither do colleges seem to have any reservations or concern either.
So it looks like we also have, we have a good number of questions, and you kind of gleaned on them regarding the 11th and 12th grade math pathways. And so I think you answered that. There's a question about what percentage of our 12th grade students successfully complete the diploma? I want to say it's 70% of our
Yeah,
students.
I can address that.
Thank you.
So 100% of our high school seniors, as they enter senior year, have a course load that qualifies them for the IB diploma. Meaning that if you were to pull out a random course schedule for any of our kids at the senior level, all of the courses they are taking are aligned with earning the IB diploma. Some seniors make a choice at some point in their senior year whether they're going to test for the full diploma or not. There are both internal and external examinations that occur. I'm not going to go into details about those, but a very, very high proportion of our students, somewhere usually between, I don't know, what would you say, Scott, 75 to 85% of those students, maybe even more on some years, decide they are going to actually become diploma candidates and test for all the courses they need in order to earn the IB diploma. Of those that test, again, nearly 80%, and sometimes higher, it varies from year to year, actually earn the IB diploma, meaning that they've received certain scores in all of their classes to be recognized, as somebody who earns the diploma. Many, I would say probably 100% of our students test in at least one class and earn what are called IB certificates. And all of those classes they test in, if they score high enough, are good for college credit at a whole variety of institutions. Oregon institutions guarantee college credit if you've tested and gotten results at a certain level. So like I said, our schedule, I know this kind of relates to the question earlier around other alternate pathways and other content areas as well. We have a program here that is designed to support each student that comes through here to be able to earn the IB diploma. And so huge differentiated pathways doesn't do that. All of our kids are going to be writing at a high level by the time they get to junior and senior year. All of our kids are going to be doing mathematics at a high level. We've committed to each kid being able to have that potential to earn that diploma. And so all kids follow that pathway. The downside to that is that there's not a whole lot of electives. There's not a whole lot of choice that happens along the way. The option school is the choice that you are making as you engage in the program. And with that comes sacrifice. And one of those is, especially at the high school level, the whole breadth of electives that you might see at a large comprehensive high school.
So there is also one question about are there other math pathways for students that possibly are more advanced in math? And yes, there are opportunities. We typically have 1 to 2 students that place into a higher math course, and if you fit into that category, we would work with you individually on that. But yes, we do have some profoundly gifted math students that attend ISB, and we make sure that they're appropriately challenged.
And for those students that would be in those pathways, they would not be with other 6th graders, most likely for their math path, but that's just because of that advancement for themselves.
Thank you, Shafin. That is correct. There's a question about the number of open seats in 9th grade and then 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. So our number of open seats at the 9th grade level we roughly accept about 40 students, because at each grade level at the middle school, we have 160 students. At the end of 8th grade, we usually retain at least 80 to 90 of them. And then at the 9th grade level, we only have 120 seats. And so we pick up the difference in that lottery. That lottery generally has anywhere between 50 to 70 students that apply. And so there's a high likelihood that students will get in during that 9th grade. At the 6th grade level, in years past, we've had anywhere between 400 and 500 students apply for 150 seats. So the chances are a little bit slimmer, as in a lot slimmer. And as Mr. Guilford said earlier, once kids are in at the 6th grade level, they generally stay. There are life experiences that tend to open up some seats at the 7th and 8th grade level, but not a lot. So we generally will accept a handful, literally 5 to 7 students at those grade levels, depending each year on how many open seats we have. Would someone like to field the question regarding, I've heard the curriculum is very project-based. Can you speak to this? Maybe one of our teachers.
So I will start off, I guess, and just mention that and this is definitely a really big adjustment about ISB in general and the middle years program, is that students are being assessed in multiple criteria for each of their classes. And so I would agree that yes, there's a lot of project-based, hands-on based, activity-based learning. But all of those things, I think, are really driven towards those criteria that are being assessed. And that's a really big shift from a traditional school, because we are part of that middle years program, we're assessing on those criteria. So a lot of times, and I'm speaking for the math course that we're doing, a lot of times the projects that we may be doing are things that are helping us approach those criteria that reach outside oftentimes of the typical scope of a math classroom. And so those might be projects about how we communicate our thinking in math, or how we recognize patterns in math or apply math in real world situations. So there's lots of traditional learning, but there is a lot of projects. But I think all of those things are really driven by those criteria that we are teaching and assessing to for our students.
And so some projects are happening within classes in ways, in part, so that we can meet those criteria that Shafin's talking about. But in terms of, there's also projects that have to happen outside a classroom. So in 8th grade, there's called what's the community project, which is a service-based project, also a problem-solving project. 10th grade, the end of the MYP program, there's what's called a personal project. So there's things that are part of the IB curriculum that don't necessarily fall neatly into a course that students participate in. And often we do that through advisory or through some other ways we configure students as they move through the years. Something else that's also unique to the IB program, there's a design course. And so all students starting in 6th grade take a design course, 6, 7, and 8. And in that design course, that is a project-based course in which they're learning the design cycle, and through that design cycle, solving a problem that they've identified.
And that design course also leads towards a personal project that students would complete as a sophomore. And that's one of the kind of the culminating aspects of the middle years program for students. And so those things are really closely related. They learn the design cycle and then kind of get to do that on their own through their personal project as sophomores.
So there's a question about what electives are available for 6th graders. So we have a limited selection. We've got band. Band is a year-long choice, or you've got a semester of choir and a semester of visual arts, of art 6. And aside from that, some places would probably call it an elective, but it's an expectation for us. As we mentioned, as Ms. Murphy mentioned earlier, the kids at the 6th grade level get to experience 2 world languages. We don't have all 3 of them, but they get to experience 2 of the 3 just to kind of give them a flavor of it. And so they can make an informed decision by the time they get to 7th grade and they're taking year 1 of a high school level world language course.
It's important to recognize that world language is not an elective. While they have a chance to do some sampling in 6th grade year, world language as an international school is part of our core curriculum. So students will be taking a world language course full year level through grade 7 all the way through grade 12. That's not something they can opt out on once they've met the state requirements.
And I lost it in the chat, but there was one up there, I believe, that asked, mentioned Japanese, Chinese, and Spanish. These are the only languages that we offer. Yes. Another question about if you get accepted in a lottery, but then you decide to change, is that possible? Yes, it's not. You're not gonna sign a document that says you're committing for the next 3 years or anything of that nature. We want it to be the right fit for you and your family. If you get accepted and then, you're finding, wow, this isn't for me, we're not going to chain you to it. Question about, is the on-campus cross-country and track for high school or middle school? That is only for our middle school. Our high school students that are in cross-country and track would be competing with their local high school. Interestingly, if a student wants to choose medical path, is that available at ISB? We have a number of students that are very science driven. And when we get to the high school level, we have a couple of elective courses that students can take. One of them being advanced science research as a freshman, where they're doing an independent science project guided by one of our science teachers that they would ultimately be in the science fair, but they're doing like heavy duty science research with that. And it's all independent with the guidance of a teacher. At the IB level, when they get to 11th and 12th grade, one of the options they could do is they could double up on their sciences. All of our students take 2 years of a biology course called Biology IB Bio HL 1 and 2. But if they wanted to, they could also take IB Chemistry simultaneously to that. That would be their quote elective, which we also call their Group 6. We do not provide AP programs at this school. What's our view on AP or IB program? I'm a little biased. I'd have to say that I am pro IB. It really values the deep and critical thinking, and it is writing heavy. And in high school, I was never a heavy writer, but I can see the value in it, and I can see it gets results, and I see. In our students when they come back after visiting, after being away at college, how prepared they were and how they are just living their best lives when they're in college because they were so well prepared.
I think the other key difference to understand is that IB is a program. And so the courses connect to each other. There's, especially at the high school level and at the diploma program level, experiences that students have and additional courses they need to take, which very deliberately tie all of their courses together into a programmatic approach. Most places that do AP, it's a series of individual courses you're taking that are advanced courses within that content area, but there's not necessarily the curricular connections, the experiential connections, or the additional pieces of service, the additional pieces of creativity that are part of an IB diploma.
There's a question about what does our 6th grade language arts class look like? We didn't necessarily dive too deeply into language arts, but I can tell you that they read a number of books. They do book talks, they do book studies. They work on their writing. They do poetry. But they also, one thing I failed to mention is that one of the expectations is that we not only read when they do novel studies, they also do works in translation. It's an expectation that every grade level and every year at ISB that students are reading a book that has been translated into English from another language from around the world. And they spend time looking at literature from around the world, dissecting it just like they would anything that was naturally written in English, but then also recognizing some of the differences as well.
And if I can jump in real quick, I think this got mentioned earlier, but it might not have. And this would apply for language arts and math, as Mr. Gladney and Mr. Guilford talked a little bit about the high school schedule, that block schedule that meets every other day. But both for language arts and math, with the goal of really helping ensure a really strong foundation for our students. Students actually are provided with an additional day of language arts and math instruction. So instead of meeting 2 out of 4 days like they would for all of their other classes, they may meet 3 out of 4 days. And that just allows for students to get a little bit of additional instruction, some additional support, and to really help make sure that students are able to access all of the content in the classes that they have. So just in case that didn't get fully mentioned earlier.
Yeah, thank you for that, Chafin. I didn't want to get buried in the weeds with and confuse anybody, but you're absolutely right. 3 out of 4 days for language arts and both in language arts and math. You're right. Mr. Guilford, maybe you can answer this one since you have some international experience. If a student studies an IB curriculum and he or she will they be able to continue that same in other country if he or she transferred to another country for some reason?
Yes and no. So it depends, of course. If the school that you are transferring to outside of the United States offers the IB curriculum, I think the middle years level will be a fairly easy transfer. What becomes tricky is at the diploma program level. And the reason I say that is because there is a whole host of IB courses that are offered, and that varies from school to school. So there are IB courses out there that we don't offer for a variety of reasons. And so, for example, if a student started here and they were in the middle of IB psychology and then they end up transferring before their senior year and they're at a school that doesn't have IB psychology, there's no way for them to finish that course. And so often schools find ways, especially outside the US, ways to work around that, ways to make sure students are supported. We do have students that come and go. I know many families are transferring to international locations. In terms of the skills, in terms of the thinking that students are being asked to do, in terms of the international lens that is woven into the curriculum, that will help tremendously in those transfers. I do know that the IB diploma is required, and earning that diploma is required for many international universities. So depending upon where students are planning to go to college, many, at least when I was working at international schools overseas, many international universities will accept students pending completion of the IB diploma. Completion not meaning not just finishing their senior year, but with all of the testing they need to do, actually earning the scores to be able to earn a full IB diploma. That's something we can talk about separately, maybe offline or via with our counselors. But we have had students that have gone back and forth internationally, and we make it work as best as we can. Sometimes it's an easy fit, sometimes not so much.
And if I could jump in there as well, real quickly, I think one other thing to just mention about that is that, and I'm going to speak for the middle years program more specifically, the content that students might be reaching may be different from country to country. But those criteria that students are being assessed on is the same. And so that's really where that connection is made as we're teaching. Here's the way to think about this particular topic in these 4 different criteria that are there. So a student that travels internationally may be working on some different content standards specifically, but the overall approach to learning itself will be the same.
So I see a couple of other really quick answers about how many people enter the lottery every year. At the 6th grade level, it's usually about 400 students on the low side for 150 seats. If not picked by the lottery, do you provide second chance for students? The only second chance for students is if you have a sibling preference. If you don't have a sibling here, then no, the lottery is your one shot. Another question, is the curriculum aligned with other IB programs around the world? Yes, it is absolutely. We are held to the same standard as ISB and IS Beijing, or wherever it might be. Yes, we're all held to the same international standards. Ms. Murphy, if a student has taken, and you can just kind of dig in a little bit more to this one, if a student has taken Mandarin as a foreign language, not native, not immersion class, would they have an opportunity to take a higher level class?
That's a great question. We have a lot of students that come to us with background knowledge, and we give them a placement assessment. We can do that in the spring or in the summer or right in the fall. And depending on what level the student places into, tells us what year they will start that language. So if a student places into, for example, level 3 is a 9th grade course. So in 7th and 8th grade, they would learn a new language. And then in 9th grade, they would have the opportunity to switch back to that language that they had prior knowledge in when they've caught up with the level that's offered.
Thank you for that. Another question said, we mentioned how most classes meet 2 out of every 4 days, except for math and language arts, which are 3 out of 4 days. What happens on the 5th day? Classes is Monday through Friday. Yes, we just use the A day, B day as a representative. So it goes like on 1 week, it could go A day, B day, A day, B day. The 5th day would be another A day, or it'd be B, A, B, A, B. And so the 3 out of every 4 days would just be 2 cycles of an A day, B day combo. We do have classes 5 days a week. Give it another minute or so for any last minute questions. I will say you've asked some really good questions, so thank you for that.
And continue to reach out. I know on our website, there's an info button that you can click on and fill out a form for further questions. You can probably dig up our emails on there as well, and feel free to email us directly or call, and we can often address those questions over the phone. Like I said earlier, we just want to make sure it's a good choice for you. We obviously believe deeply in what we do, and we know that we're able to reach each of the students that we have here. That being said, it's not a school for everybody. There's advantages and disadvantages to each school. And so I think for you as a family, it's figuring out, does this make the most sense? And so talk with your kid, feel free to reach out and ask questions further, or if you wanted to chat further, we're happy to entertain that. With that, thank you so much for coming, and appreciate you having you here. We will, let's see here. Reach out if you have anything, and good night.